Here, I'll just do a full stop.
Okay.
Can we turn off here, or should we just keep going?
You can, or you can go down the end, turn around, take back off, whichever way you want to go.
I'll get it right here.
Looks like they got Jet A and 100 octane low lead self-service pumps.
Yeah. And then do we just taxi back onto the runway and then down to that end?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, when places are deserted and the winds are calm, you know, and there's no taxiway, you can always just announce that you're going to the other end if you want to and depart from that direction.
All right. I mean, we have time to head like back over the lake just to practice some stalls and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
In fact, I'm gonna be reviewing a pre-solo written with this guy at 10:30, so we've got until 10:30 if you want.
Cool. Yeah, I got until 10:30 as well.
Okay.
What time is it right now?
I don't think the airplane is going to go out again until yeah, the plane is completely available.
Then I've got my pre-solo written done as well.
Okay, good. If you got time to stick around, we can do them together. Or if not, then we'll do it first thing. Aren't we on tomorrow morning?
Yeah.
We can do it first thing tomorrow morning and then go ahead and solo you if you want to.
Works for me.
Okay.
All right.
All right, looking good. Flaps, mix, mags,
Yep.
pump, power. Normal acceleration. Yeah, I see somebody out on that track now.
Oh, yeah, I see him. Yeah, it looks like a little go-kart driver.
I'm just going to run through these 15 categories of things for pre-solo, and
Yep.
anything that sounds unusual or you'd like to do besides what we've done and what we routinely do, let's do it. But you know, almost every time you go up, you go through pre-flight planning, and then to get to the runway, you go through the taxiing procedures that we become familiarized with.
Yeah.
Then normal takeoffs and landings, including crosswind. I think we've had plenty of exposure to that. Straight and level flight and turns, climbs and descents. Climbs and descents with turns. Airport traffic patterns, you know, we know that standard is left traffic, left downwind, base and final. And non-standard would be right turns like runway 28 at Covington. Airport traffic patterns, we just got through running through that. The common sense things like collision avoidance, to keep your eyes outside the airplane and your mind out in front of the airplane. Wind shear and turbulence, you know, if the air is bumpy, it makes sense to slow down to minimize the effect of gust factors on the airframe. Wind shear is something we really don't get into very much unless it's actually happening to us, and that's when there's a fair amount of gusting and variable conditions down close to the ground. So we might have a fairly consistent headwind through most of our final approach, and then almost at touchdown, the wind could drop or change direction, which would change our lift characteristics quickly. So that's why we have our hand on the throttle all the way through the approach, so that we can add or subtract power as we need it to compensate for wind shearing on us. Slow flight with maneuvering, we do that on all our approaches anyhow. Then
Sierra, run a contact here northeast of the cab heat treacher.
Descents with high and low drag. stalls and recoveries, we'll go do a few of those. Emergency procedures. I think we've practiced at least a couple of times, you know, what we would do if we lost our engine, you know, at altitude. And certainly we talk about it, you know, when we're closer to the ground, like when we're departing and when we're thinking about preparing to land. Generally speaking, best glide speed is the first thing to think about, you know, and say, okay, best glide in this one would be somewhere between the 80s, pretty much like we got right now on our climb. Then we could think about where we might want to put the airplane in as our second thought process. Then we could try to fix the problem before we had to land. The other thing about, well, stalls emergency procedures would be the difference between an emergency descent and a engine out descent. With an engine out descent, we want to try to stay in the air as long as we can to try to fix the problem before we actually have to land. With an emergency descent, we voluntarily want to get back down to the ground quickly. So we can, if we say we had a fire and we could turn the pull the mixture out to full lean to kill the engine. Turn our fuel to the off position. Push the nose down and or slow down to flap operating range, which we'd probably be in anyway in a Piper, and get full flaps in, and then push the nose dramatically down so we could spiral down to the ground as quickly as we could.
Okay.
And if we could make consistent turns either to the right or to the left, hopefully the flames would stay off to the right side of the cowl as we kept turning away from them.
Okay, I didn't know that part of it.
That way you keep the fire out of your face and hopefully keep it off of as much of it out of the firewall. But by pulling the mix and turning the fuel off, that should help to extinguish the flames quickly to eliminate the fuel source for the fire. Ground reference maneuvers, we would, you know, I think ground reference maneuvers, in the manuals they talk about turns around a point and S-turns across a road and stuff like that. Those are just kind of, I think, relatively useless maneuvers because they're not real world flying. You know, when you're real world flying, you want to try to fly as precise a traffic pattern as you can, or comply with air traffic control to fly precise headings and altitudes. So I feel like, you know, practicing precise pattern control around a given runway on approach to land is much more of a good ground reference maneuver than anything else.
Yeah.
Then we already talked about approach to landing with the engine out. Slips to a landing. I don't know if we've done much of that or not.
Not a lot. I would say I'd take some out here if we're about to.
Yeah, let's do some of that right now that we've got 4,500.
All right.
Let's just pull the power back to, down around 1,500, somewhere in that vicinity. That'll allow us to glide with a little bit of power.
Yeah.
So if we found ourselves 500 feet higher than we wanted to on an approach to land, and the airport was right under us, and we wanted to slip to land, we could go on and pull the power back to idle. And then if our runway was right in front of us, we could just drop the wing toward it, or drop one wing and then push in the opposite rudder.
Okay.
And this would enable us to lose altitude quickly without changing our airspeed.
All right, and do we have to worry about like the turn indicator being way off?
No, because we are off on purpose.
Okay.
We're cross-controlled on purpose so that we can present ourselves at an angle to the oncoming wind and increase our drag and our sink rate.
Okay.
See, we're dropping at almost 1,500 feet per minute, but we're doing it in a straight line because we've got opposite rudder and other wing down.
Okay.
And we can do it the other way, just drop the right wing and use the left rudder.
Okay.
And those are forward slips with opposite rudder. So go ahead and play with that for a minute while we're at it. You know, you just want to think about losing the altitude straight ahead of you and cross-controlling the airplane. So you push the wing down enough to keep your heading going, and then you use the opposite rudder to yaw the airplane.
Okay.
So that's all we're doing, you know, with the slip. We're just descending straight ahead in a yaw.
That makes
Now
sense.
you can turn while you're slipping too. You can do it, but you know it's better to just control it. Then you lose altitude dramatically quickly without gaining a whole bunch of airspeed. Then when you finally let the slip go, you're pretty much in a position to pull your flaps up and land.
Yep.
So that's the way those work. And then we've practiced enough go-arounds. I think we're comfortable with that.
Yeah.
So we've done all that stuff. So let's get some altitude. We can just head out over the lake there, and I guarantee you we're ahead of most of the Saturday night party people that are going to be up on Sunday morning. Actually, if we stay down toward the lower part of the lake, we won't have the sun quite in our eyes as much. Or we can go on out over it and do a 180 and then just kind of hang out in this vicinity. Then we won't have to worry about the sun, and we can see out in front of us better.